Well, thanks for coming on. It's been probably 20 something years since we last seen you. We were in Florida and got to
I
meet you.
know.
We were always, I think, both very inspired by you and Pierre's positivity
Yeah.
and your outlook on life and just your willingness to accept what looked like to us your circumstances and make the best of it. And that's really hard. Maybe you could start from the beginning. You were a businesswoman prior to getting
That's
into this
right.
field. So tell us, what did you do before all this, and what was the decision to adopt Gabby?
Okay. Well, first of all, let me just say thank you all for having me. I have such fond memories of you, both of you, and, and our journey with Gabby and what a positive impact that had on her life and our life when we met you all at Sydney School. So, and she still remembers so much of that. So,
Oh, I have such fond memories of being with her every day and just, the fun we had and the challenges, but the fun is what really,
fun.
just the laughter and just.
Catherine just remembered
Totally.
one time Gabby found a wheelchair or something in the church, and she came running out with it and was so excited and so happy. Like it was the greatest thing ever.
And we all just embraced that moment and just celebrated because it was the best.
Oh my God. I know. And she still loves wheelchairs. I mean, she's still like so drawn to them. So that hasn't changed. I'll start off by sharing a little bit of our journey. And of course, Pierre and I have been married for lots of years now. We're like going to be 38, I think, this year. And
Wow,
yes, it's been a long time. Thank you. And just having so much fun now. Always, well, not always, because we'll talk about the red zone years, but, we fell in love. He was my insurance adjuster. I had a little accident and, fell in love, got married, then had the plans for the family. And I think like most couples, they start planning for the future. And we had the 5-year plan. We had everything locked in. And 3 years into it, we decided, I think we're ready. We've done a lot of traveling and we both have careers. And so we started that process. And 7 years later, with that process not working for us, because we went through many years of infertility, we decided adoption was our path. And so we just happened to, start looking at international adoption. And Pierre's family is from Europe. And his grandmother was from Romania. And we happened to connect with this group that was adopting children from Romania at the time, and got into the group and felt like that was our path, that children would come over, they would be delayed, but they seemed to soon catch up. And so that was a very lengthy process for us because it took a little longer. We were supposed to get Gabby when she was, before she was 1 year old. And by the time we got her with all the delays, it was a little over 2 years, 2 years and 3 months. And so the effects of the orphanage obviously had an impact on her. We thought we were prepared, but we really weren't that prepared for everything that she was experiencing because she wasn't walking, she wasn't talking. So we immediately started intervention. We took her to our pediatrician, who said, no, she just doesn't look like she has any muscles in her legs. It just hasn't developed. And so, over the next few years, we really were about supporting her, but it was really, really challenging because obviously she had the impacts of the orphanage on top of which we came to find out because after a lot of therapies, we immediately got her speech and occupational, and she was still so delayed that at some point I knew like something else is going on. And even though everybody was saying, no, she'll catch up, we started, doing more. We did neurological testing and we went through all of that. And at the age of 4 is when we got the diagnosis of autism. We got autism, we got PDD, NOS, we had apraxia, which we didn't even know what the full impact was at that point. But up to then, it had been really challenging years with her. And to answer your question, Brian, I had been working at Tampa Electric. So I was in leadership at the utility company. Pierre had a leadership role. And during that time, I was getting promoted at work. So it was like almost easier to stay at work.
Yeah.
Because it was so challenging at home. And I felt like I really, as a mom, I was not having any success. I didn't understand Gabby, didn't understand what she was going through. She couldn't tell us because she didn't have the words. So those are what I call the red zone years for us.
Was there a period during that time when you're like, why the infertility, and then the long period of time to get the adoption? I'm sure that cost lots of money from my understanding, and all the red tape and all the things you have to do to get adopted, and then all this. I'm sure there's a period when you're going through that. What was it really like for you? Was it frustration, anger? You go through the whole grieving process?
Yeah, it was a grieving process. I mean, Pierre and I have talked about that recently, and Pierre experienced it as more denial, so he was in denial that anything was happening, like, oh no, she's going to be fine. For me, that made it a little tougher even, because I'm like, oh my God, I'm the only one experiencing this. But yeah, it was a lot of grief, and I have a spiritual background. So for me, it was like, okay, God, why? Why did this happen? We've gone through all of this now, and now we're here. We're in such a hard place, not knowing how to parent Gabby, not knowing, how to support her. And it was at one point where I remember just hitting that place of despair, grief and despair. For me, that's a hard place to be in, because I'm naturally a very positive person. But I feel like over time, I felt kind of like abandoned, like I was on my own island trying to work this out, not knowing where to go. And I just said, God, you have the wrong person. You picked, I'm not the right mom. Even during this time, there was a family that sent their child back to Romania. The same child that came out was Gabby. It was like,
wow.
They must have had just a really hard experience there. But I just felt like I don't know where to go from here. I'm not equipped for this. And I heard very clearly at that point, like, this is not here to harm you. This is here to serve you. I just didn't know, in what ways. But at that point, I just knew that I had to do some work on myself first. So I'm in the red zone. So just to share now that we have words for it, red zone is just experiencing a lot of really negative, worry and anger, frustration, all the way down to then fear, despair, feeling powerless, grief. So that's a really hard place to be. And really, at that place, you really don't know what to do, because you don't have any clarity. You don't have any wisdom on how to proceed forward. So at some point, I said, I need to do work on myself to get into what we now call the green zone, which is back to my connected place, knowing all things are working for our good. And luckily, I started doing a lot of very holistic, spiritual, connected with my spiritual practices, meditation, mindfulness, a lot of affirmation. So we really went down that path. And luckily, Pierre, observing that, hey, this is kind of working for her, ended up joining me. And he started his own meditation practices. And then that's when things can appear. That's when the Sydney School appeared, really. That's when resources, because we started doing work on what do we really want? We started creating these little focus wheels, which we use today even, but it's just, what do we want? Really believe that that's happened, and then really identify how we want to feel. And so there has been key moments on our path that we went back to using that focus wheel to get just a lot of clarity on what do we want, how do we want to feel, where do we want Gabby to be. We want her to feel, that she's loved, that she's supported. So doing all that work, I think it really guided our path through all those years, because they were still challenging. Gabby is considered, she's part of the non-speaking community. He's considered a minimal speaker and an unreliable speaker. So there were a lot of things that Gabby said at the time. Like, she says, hey, I want this, chicken nuggets for dinner. And she really wants this hamburger. Just an example. So she's living in a constant state of frustration because she can't really get what she wants, but we didn't know that either. So there was a lot tied to really the lack of understanding of her world. And really that is what led me, so again, finally getting into this green zone. We're not committed to being in the green zone. We said, we've got to develop such a practice that even if Gabby's having a meltdown, we need to separate ourselves just to stay in the green zone. Just because if not, we're hooked into the red zone and then we're all in the red zone. And guess what? We can't support each other,
That's so hard.
Yeah.
It's so hard, isn't it? As a parent, I mean, it's easy to get hooked into what they're experiencing.
I get hooked all the time still. It gets me. I can be so patient with clients, but when I get home and my kids, for whatever reason, they get me every time. And I feel myself in that reactive frustration. And then it just escalates the whole thing. Doesn't help anything.
Just escalates. Yeah. And I mean, we experience that so over and over. We're like, this is insanity. It's like, okay. But the changing link is not Gabby. We kept waiting for her to change and, get better. And it wasn't. It was like, we've got to be the change. As parents, we have to. And it's one of the things that I really learned is how much our emotional state impacts our children. And especially the neurodiverse community, individuals with autism, children with autism. I was in a mode of thinking, I don't want a child with autism. I had this perfect, when I was imagining what our life would be like, and she was not it. And so I was like, I wish she didn't have autism. I'm very frustrated. When I try to go out with her, it's just a constant frustration. Well, now I know, of course, with Gabby being very multisensory, she could feel all of that energy. I mean, all children can, honestly, but she has this a sixth sense, just can read your mind. Even if you're smiling, she knows what's happening. And so I just think about that with our community. And I think, as parents, how important it is for us to get to that place where we see them and say, you are so awesome. You are such a cool kid. You've got so much to offer this world. I remember telling Gabby once I was equipped for that, saying, I don't know how your path is going to unfold, but there are great things ahead for you. And really believing that, because you can't just give lip service to it.
No.
Right.
You have to really believe it, because if not, they see through it.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the work. That was the work we had to do to get ourselves to a different place so that she can stay encouraged about what was ahead.
I think that was a big shift in my career, is shifting from my perspective and getting clients to do what I want them and be in my perspective and see my world to what's their perspective? What's it like for them, understanding their perspective and how they're interpreting and taking the world, like you said, with their sensory system, and then using that to support them and giving them tools to help them be the highest potential, whatever that is for that person. And you saw that with Gabby.
Totally.
Which was a huge shift for me. Does the guilt or shame of wanting to stay at work or saying I don't want a kid with autism, did the meditation and mindfulness and all the work you and Pierre did that help you overcome that and get through that?
Totally. And it's a lot of work on self-compassion.
Yeah.
It really is about I think so many of the moms I talk to experience that, but so much of it is just you did the best you could with what you knew at the time.
Yeah.
Right.
And the key is the more you know, the better you can do. Right. And so at some point you have to let that go. And Pierre and I talk about it too, because, we've apologized to Gabby. We said, we're so sorry. We just, we didn't even know how even brilliant you are, even back then when we knew that she had something special going on. We just, but we didn't know, and there was no way we could know. And so we have to you have to surrender that. So much of the process of surrendering, of a lot of the hurt and pain and all of that, just so you can, see it as your path of growth. Pierre and Gabby and I know we were brought together for a reason. And so that's kept us going. And Gabby knows it too. She knows that there's a purpose behind all of this, and it's to grow us, it's growth. So, that's a big part of what I think parents need to do is just, let go of the past and, be back in the present moment with, what now? And I think that we talk about the acceptance of an autism diagnosis and getting to that place where you accept it. And then you go, okay, what now?
Yeah.
Okay, like we are where we are. It's not denying it or no, it's not happening. It's really embracing it. And it's like, okay, now we know that. Now what? Let's go and support you the best way we know how with the resources that are out there.
Yeah, I think that's huge. And then acknowledging all of those emotions that have come up too and the acceptance, but acknowledging it for yourself, but then also acknowledging it to Gabby and for anybody to acknowledge it to their children or spouse or, just, hey, yeah, I did that. And now I want to move forward in this different way. And yeah, what's next? What are we here for?
Right.
Yeah, that's so important.
Totally.
Catherine does a lot of work with the ACT and ACT matrix, and what you were saying about identifying what's important to you is one of the main concepts and she talks about a lot, like what's important, who or what's important to me, and then what are the tools we can use to move closer to that. And
What
it
am I
sounds,
doing?
Yeah.
sounds like you guys clearly identified that, and family and Gabby and supporting her is a value, and continue to move towards that every day.
Totally.
While also noticing all that stuff that comes up, right? All the feelings and all the yucky stuff, and noticing what we're doing reactive when we're in the red zone. And then it does really line up well with what you were talking about. So it sounds like, Gabby has really been a catalyst for so much of the work that then you took on this journey. And I remember, I think you were starting the art project. There was an art project in a coffee shop. I remember back, 20 years ago. I believe you were starting it then.
Totally. Yeah.
So she was really the catalyst for you to shift. Do you want to talk a little bit about that transfer over? And did you leave your full-time job, or were you doing both projects on the side? How did that work out for you?
Yeah, I thought I was going to be retiring from my corporate job. That was the plan, right? The best laid plan. But at some point, I knew that I wanted to leave and wasn't quite sure, but I already had such a desire. So, I think it's intention setting, and the intention first was well-being, as mental, emotional well-being, the green zone. That was my dominant intent, and that's what kept us, moving forward. And then the second was just really gaining such a deeper understanding of autism, neurodiversity. It started with autism, really, because Gabby's diagnosis was autism, but I really wanted to get it, like what's happening. And again, Gabby just didn't have the words. If not, I would have been asking her, what's happening? What's going on? And so I think that's what led me, that intention of understanding is what led me to kind of leave my corporate job. And I started a coffee company and a nonprofit for autism at the same time, relatively. And they came together beautifully. I was at an appointment with the general manager at Mercedes-Benz at the time, a wonderful guy, and was talking to him about what we were doing with the nonprofit. I was there to really sell him some coffee because I had a relative that worked in the dealership, said, we had terrible coffee. You have great coffee. Can you come talk to him? So I brought some coffee and I'm talking to him, but the discussion turned to the nonprofit because at that time we were working with a high school group of students that were doing some job skill training, and they were opening up a little coffee shop, like a kiosk at the school. And we were working with them. We were supplying the coffee. We were, trying to help them set it up. And so I was sharing that with him, and he said, well, why don't you run the cafe in our new dealership that will be opening up next year? And I was like, again, a divine moment, because not my plan. I said, I'll never open a coffee shop. And I said, well, how would you feel if we ran it with young adults on the autism spectrum? And he said, I think that would be great.
Wow.
It was just an incredibly, special moment. And, 4 months later, we were open in that dealership with our first 4 baristas that were on the autism spectrum. And so it was really through that process and really working with them and, again, seeking to understand, like, what do they why are you doing that? And what do you need? And what do you, yeah. And really coming together with this wonderful gentleman that I met, Michael, at the time, who had the cafe experience. And we just came together, and really it was shortly after that we started incorporating some of the practices that I had learned through my spiritual journey. So we started doing some of the emotional work with them, trying to really identify what do they really want, because a lot of them had some great desires, some great talents and abilities that they really didn't think they could ever use. And so that became a big part of our program at the time, is to really identify, hey, what are your limiting beliefs? How do you feel about autism? How do you feel about having autism? And it was such a key time for me, because I realized this community as a whole does not want to have autism, and this is probably pre-advocacy, because you do have a lot of advocates out there and a lot of influence that kind of got beyond that. For the most part, a big portion of our community wishes that they did not have autism. So when we talk about that self-acceptance piece, that acceptance of who you are and what you bring into this world, what your unique talents and abilities and light, if you don't have that, it makes it a lot more difficult to move forward with confidence. And so that's what we started really building in these young adults, and saw amazing things happen. I mean, saw someone who thought he would be a dishwasher, for example, now move into a claims role in an insurance company. I mean, it was like some big shifts that were happening, artists, they went to college. And so we had really great success with the community. One of the things we saw was and these were parents that were kind of out there seeking, because I always believe if you seek, you find. If you're out there seeking a program or knowing there's something out there, you're going to find it. But I talked to many parents that would come that really didn't think their child could do it, no. And it's all they'll never get married. They'll never live on their own. They'll never, have a job. They'll never took that in and thought how much of an impact we have as parents over what our children believe that is possible for them. But again, that was a huge learning, and we were there for over 8 years. Did a mobile cafe. We did a second cafe. And then after COVID hit, is when I really took a step back and started looking at the impact that I really wanted was pretty significant in terms of really changing the perception now of autism and neurodiversity, helping, because I was able, with our team, we were able to create a really great environment for them to grow and thrive. We trained all the Mercedes employees, and so it was a really integrated, inclusive environment. They were all considered part of the team. They all felt included. And so as I took all of that away, I thought there's obviously the young adult plays a really important part in this whole process, children and young adults. The parents and caregivers play a significant role, because if we're all in the red zone, and there's a lot of families that are struggling to survive like we were day to day. If we need to get beyond that, we need to have tools and the knowledge to get into the green zone so we can create that really positive environment for our child, the hope that there are things that are out there for them. And then we become the model to model that behavior, right? I mean, we could tell our child, don't have a meltdown or get happy. But, really they're looking at us, right? They're seeing like we're the examples of that. And that's what we became for Gabby, the role model. When we're doing our meditation, or when we're saying, hey, we're in the red zone, because you make it okay wherever you're at. We're in the red zone. We're going to go take a breather. We'll be in our room if you want to come join us. And so it kind of taught her the tools and the processes. Of course, we started teaching her the tools: deep breathing, straw breathing, meditation, go in your room, be in the moment. Let's be in the moment here. So we kind of, again, we shared that with her, and it made a huge difference for her as well. because
And
now she's equipped.
the red zone, we all know it can look really bad. And I'd imagine parents are thinking, well, it couldn't have been as bad as my kid hitting me and throwing this meltdown and destroying and putting holes in the wall. But it did. We know for you, it looked bad. It was really, really bad, right? At times, I'm sure even
It was
surviving
bad.
the minute, like how do I get through the next minute? And you did it by creating that space for yourself where you took that space. You had to set boundaries for your own personal self-regulation to then be able to deal with Gabby. Is that kind of
Totally.
accurate?
Yeah. Yeah. I get that sometimes. Well, my situation's different. I
Yeah.
think, okay, well, we don't want to go out there saying all the negative stuff we went through, but you
Yeah.
guys know personally, I mean, when you talk self-injurious behavior, I mean, those are hard things to see and stay in a good place. And sometimes you do have to separate yourself, and it's okay to do that. Like first I was a little guilty, like, oh God, I should be comforting her, but really I can't comfort her because she's feeling my anxiety right now. And so I'm really not serving her because I'm so anxious that it's just adding
Yeah.
more anxiousness to the situation. So separation is, sometimes needed, and it's okay to take that time, and actually you're serving them better. So, it's like a shift of mindset, like, hey, if I get myself back into the green zone quicker, then I can help her. Just even with holding that space, holding that energy, it's like, okay, it's easier for someone to come up to where you're at, if you're holding it for them. And then, okay. So
Yeah.
it was tough. And I feel like if I can do it, anyone can do it. I'm probably the least patient person. I have type A personality. So I'm thinking, okay, if I can learn this, our parents can learn this. It's just practicing like anything else. It's just changing your paradigm, setting your intentions for who you want to be. It's almost like you got to have that image of, okay, my future self is here, and this is what I'm doing, and this is how I'm feeling, and all of that is what moves you towards that just that desire, and really trying to get into the emotions of that before it even happens. You just practice that. You're creating new neural pathways in your brain, so
Yes.
you can now become that person.
Yeah. And it definitely takes that proactive approach of doing it before the upset, doing it before everybody's in the red zone, practicing the meditation, practicing the breathing, so that when you do come
Totally.
upon that moment, you're more likely either to be able to access it in that moment or to then step away to know what you need to do to get back to the green zone.
Get
'Cause you have
back
to have that.
into, right.
Yeah. It can be hard though. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
very,
It
very
can. I
challenging.
mean, we still have, because people say, well, you can't live in the green zone 100%, nor do you want
Right.
to, honestly. I mean, that's not the point of this. The point is the bounce back power,
Yes.
because life has challenges. As parents, you're going to face new challenges every day. And so it's like, how quickly can we get from here to here back into the green zone? Because it used to be that I would struggle for days. Like if something happened, I could feel it. I would still be carrying it for days. And now, hey, if I can carry it for an hour and then let it go, I mean, you got to start looking at that. Is what percentage of time are you spending in the red zone? And we were spending an exorbitant amount of time in the red zone. And now we've flipped that. So now we're spending, an exorbitant amount of time in the green zone. And then we have our red zone moments that, help us to appreciate, green zone and want to get back there.
Part of our journey on the podcast is identifying. So you had a secure job, and you took a risk and said, I'm going to jump into this coffee thing. What was it, or feeling, or was it your faith, or what was it that made you be like, I have all this chaos going in my life already, but I'm going to throw my job and my secure income or whatever it was, and just really go all in. What was it for you specifically? Can you identify what that was?
I think it's just you get to the point where there's something that's calling you, and and it had been a call for a little while, and I had you kind of deny it. No, I got this, or I can't do it. You find all the reasons why you can't. But at some point, it just became an undeniable pull that I was ready for that next step. And I didn't even know, again, when you do something like this, you don't know. It is a faith walk. It does require faith. I mean, I think our whole journey with Gabby has required such faith. It has developed it to faith in action. It really does. That's one of the things that I think has served us is it's grown our faith, because faith is, trusting in what's unseen yet, right? So with our community, particularly, if you look at them just right where they're at, it's hard to see, right? But faith is looking beyond what you see in front of you. And so at the time, I didn't know where God was taking me and why he was shifting me, but I knew beyond the shadow of a doubt. And the way things lined up at work was that, we were going through financial, challenges, and I just knew like that's the right time. It just became crystal clear to me that, and Pierre was, of course, having a very supportive spouse like Pierre. He was just he's always been such a support system for me. So, it made it easier to transition out and start this new venture. So it all, again, that the cafe evolved over a little bit of time. So I didn't even know that's what I was being called to. But at the time, sitting there with that general manager, it just was like the sky opened up. I just thought, okay, this is a divine moment. I mean, I just felt it. Like, this is what it's calling me to. And, even jumping into something like that and, oh gosh, meeting the right people that came all together to create that was an amazing faith experience. So, but yeah.
It's
And
amazing.
then, I decided, and then I knew it was time to leave that too.
Yep.
Because I had been offered to start other cafes and other dealerships, other communities. And it just never felt like that was it. It was just it was a time for me to really understand our community at such a deeper level and have such an appreciation for neurodiversity, just different ways of thinking and being. And I just felt that that's something that I needed to have to continue this journey. And then now it really is working with the full family, with parents and caregivers. We are the change that needs to happen. So when I still look after 23 years or 24 years of getting Gabby's diagnosis, we're still experiencing, 80% unemployment rate, 70% dependent living rate, and I start looking at that. Plus, our community, there's, with especially with autism, 70% mental health challenges that children experience. And that's from bullying, isolation, not feeling good about themselves, all those things. And then 50% of parents and caregivers also have mental health challenges. And I was one of those. I mean, anxiety and despair is not good. So I just think that there's a lot of work we need to do within the community to change what's happening in the world. Because if you think about an empowered family that really sees the possibilities and gets involved in creating it, I mean, parents are business owners, they're employers. So if you think about it, if we educate our parents, help them understand neurodiversity in a different way, then they are the change makers out there. Then they can go out there and advocate for change in wherever they're at. And that's what's needed right now. It's like any movement, like civil rights movement, the women's movement. It takes a group of very empowered people to go out and start changing what's happening. And that's where I think we're at. And the other piece is just businesses and helping them to really understand how they can create this safe, supportive, inclusive environment where these young adults can be authentic and thrive And you want them to be able to experience using their unique talents and abilities and having people understand them. And part of our program was helping them understand the neurotypical world. So it goes both ways. So that's kind of where we're at now with our new program that we're launching, Be the Change, be a change maker. It's
And
like
then that's
first
NeuroPass, right?
Nouriship.
it's NeuroShifts.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. So that's through NeuroShifts, our nonprofit organization. We're doing a lot of work on the green zone, helping on the emotional and mental health, mental well-being. So that has to come, we need some tools to really regulate ourselves and become more aware and be able to, again, in the green zone, you can see things differently, right? In the red zone, things look pretty bad. Your child's behaviors, everything looks really negative. When you're in the green zone, it gives you a whole different view. And so the more time you can spend there and see things through that lens, see your child through that lens, now you're seeing the beauty, the possibilities, all of those things.
Just to be in that mindset, you have to be able to have that opportunity to see it not as a disability, but an opportunity, right? To look at the world from a different perspective and try something different that maybe you're not even ready to if you're in that red zone. The crisis mindset is
totally. Yeah, you can't. You just can't. Over there, you just don't have access to it. You don't have access to things in the red zone. It's a whole different perspective. Even now, sometimes if I'm in the red zone, I'm so cognizant of it. I try to reach for that green zone belief that I know I have. You can't. You have to work your way back into the green zone to really embrace that.
Yeah, I love that you're looking at it as a whole global mission, that you're starting with the families that then are going to reach out and connect with all the people they interact with, the business people, the people at school. It's just in spreading that approach with everyone. So what would it look like for someone who wanted to work with you with NeuroShifts? Is it a consultation approach? Do they sign up for classes? How would they go about doing that?
Yeah, we have a 1 year, you become a change maker member, and it's a 1 year program. And in that process, it gives families access to the educational part. We have a course called Green Zone Life, and it's 8 modules. They go through the training. They get into a community with coaching. They have group coaching for parents. So oftentimes parents don't know what to do, right? Like I have this situation at home, and especially if you're in the red zone, you have no access to a new idea or how to approach that. And so really it's about building a supportive community. It's all with the intention of, hey, I want our family to live in the green zone. I want our family, to create kind of an oasis here in our home where it used to be kind of a war zone. And now I'm creating this oasis where we can all experience it, a more joyful life, more hope, more positivity. So the parents get group coaching. It's a lot of educational. We have, we're doing the podcast, and we've got more influencers coming in, more resources. So, resources that parents might need and not have access to, just introducing new resources to the group. And then for the young adults, it's also being a part of the group. We have a Foundation for Friendship group. We have all sorts of meetup groups that they can get involved with, like animation, anime, that's special interest, but it's a great way to make connections because a lot of this community feels very isolated, both the young adults and the parents and caregivers. We're still kind of in the closet about our child oftentimes, or our family doesn't get it. We don't really know anybody who has autism. So we're very isolated. And part of it is building that network, that community, and that support that we need to, again, make the shift. And it doesn't happen like, okay, one course and now you're shifted. It really is looking back at like what we wish we would have had. This was it. Like, wow, if we would have had this available to us, because we had to learn it ourselves, right? And luckily, I was rabid at like learning and understanding it and sharing it with peer. But like the support groups we tried back then, we left actually feeling worse because it's like, woe is us. It's like, let me tell you about my situation. It's really tough. And that's not really what we need. Yes, we can communicate what we're experiencing, but really it's about finding solutions. It's okay. How do we change that? How do we shift that around? How do we, create something positive out of that? So having that kind of support is really important to us. And then for businesses, it's right now we've launched a whole series. We have free webinar that we're starting to host just as introduction to how to create a neuro-ready workplace. And then we also have a whole workshop series that can help businesses to really create that kind of environment where really this community can thrive, but it helps everybody thrive. Honestly, because these communities and creating a space for everyone is really the best spaces, right? For all of us to be in and work in.
Well, that's impressive just to get the resources and the time to build that. I can imagine has been
to pull it all together.
It's a huge endeavor and appreciated, I'm sure. What are 3 things you do, or maybe you would recommend that somebody in the red zone, maybe a new diagnosis, what could they do today that would may help them begin to start to shift from the reactivity to more of being present in the moment?
Yeah.
What do you do today when you're in the red zone?
What do we do? Gosh, yeah, we have a lot of great practices. I mean, meditation. I mean, typically we don't take time at all to just get into a space where we're just trying to be, right? We get so active. And I remember saying, well, I don't have time to meditate, right? I don't have time. But it's like, if you could start with just, 10 or 15 minutes of your day where your intention is just to sit and breathe. And it's just about breath. It's listening to the breath. Thoughts are going to come because that's what they do, right? That's what our mind does, is thinks all the time. But it's just being aware of that and being in a place where you just let those go. It's just getting into the practice of just being in a space to just really decompress. Of course, mindfulness is trying to carry moments of that into your day where you're just present, right? Even eating and we're watching TV or we're thinking about other things. And it's just, we have a practice of just eating dinner, no TV. We're just present. Gabby's very into the being in the present moment, just being appreciative of the food you're eating and tasting it instead of just so. I mean, there are so many things that you can do with presence, with mindfulness, with meditation. I mean, I think a simple act is just appreciation journal. Appreciation's at the very top of the green zone scale. It's right up there with love and joy and freedom. And oftentimes we think about all our challenges in our life. And if we could just take a moment in the morning or a moment at night and just really start thinking about what are we appreciative for in our life? Gosh, we have this home. My child did this great thing yesterday. I mean, it doesn't have to be anything big. But just getting into the habit of finding things to appreciate. Because at one point, I remember when we started this, I thought, everything seems so overwhelming. I don't know if I could find anything. I mean, that's how I felt. But slowly, if you start really, again, making that an intention, I want to start looking for things to appreciate. And I remember with Gabby, it would be, oh my God, she's sitting watching TV, quietly. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. And so it was just starting to find things that she was doing right that we really appreciated. And that really can also shift. So I would say those 3 things are really easy, really simple things that people can start doing today that creates a really big shift in their life. And I have to share with you, because I don't think you know this about Gabby. About 5 years ago, we found this therapy for her, and it's called Spell to Communicate. Yeah. And so the belief that I had since Gabby was little was she is really smart, which I have to say, that is a really big thing. I know I didn't insert that during our talk here today, but parents being that they believe in their child is competent. So competency, so many parents don't believe their child is capable of doing all sorts of things. They're making their bed and lunch and all that. And luckily, because of the cafe, we taught Gabby how to do all those things. So even someone who at the time, was low functioning, we just taught her step by step how to do all these things. So she's been totally self-sufficient. But I think that's what led us to the therapy at the right time, because it was through that therapy that we found, because of Gabby's motor challenges, that she was even unable to move her eyes and be able to write, or even her focus. And then, of course, the motor challenges with being able to speak. So when we started this therapy, it was about making the connection between her brain and her body, her mind. And it's a training that you're actually spelling on these letter boards.
Yep.
And through that, we found that Gabby has such a brilliant mind. And the things that she knows are things I don't know. I mean, Gabby watched medical channels when she was growing up, and veterinarian, and she knows, she has kept all of that in her mind. So now, of course, that even opens up more possibilities. Yeah. She's part of a non-speaking community, and we just had a camp. So we did a camp weekend that was driven by Gabby. She said, I want this. This year was our second annual. So she's out there really advocating with that group. And it's just, again, that's part of what can happen if we develop this sense of hope for the future, and all things are possible for the future. I think that can happen for such a large percentage of our community.
We've had Julie Sando on, and she's done a lot of work, and we've worked with her in San Diego in the Spell to Communicate, and the stuff they're doing is brilliant. It's unbelievable. These non-speaking 20, 30-year-olds sharing through the letterboard. I've been stuck in my brain. I haven't been able to share, and finally being able to share and connect through communicating. It's just...
I know, it's mind-blowing to think that.
Yeah.
So I just to tell parents, assume it's all in there.
Yeah.
Assume that your child...
100% competency, yes.
Yeah.
It's that all the time.
Yeah, seeing the different individuals I've worked with that have worked on spelling to communicate has been so profound. Just to, like you mentioned with Gabby, to have thoughts or to have things that she's saying that she's not actually wanting, but then to be able to spell it probably and to communicate.
Right.
So to see individuals like, all this time we thought you wanted to leave, but you actually want to stay, and now you can spell and tell us that, and it's like, it's life-changing, for them and their families and people that interact with them. And it's just so profound. Totally. So it's amazing that you're involved with that, and that she's getting to participate. And
tell us about Gabby today, and what's, I guess, your hope for the future. What's next for you guys?
Well, I mean, she's talked about going to college, which now many of the community, they have created some access so that they can have a communication partner, because they do need somebody to right now. Facilitate their communication. So that's a strong possibility for her. But I think my perception is getting ready for some big things in her life. I think she has this spirit that when people are around her, I mean, I can't tell you how many people say, my God, she's just, because she uplifts people's spirits just by her presence, and
that was always our experience. Yeah. We love her.
Thinking about her now, I feel like
she's amazing.
Energetic, like lift, because just being around her, even so long ago, I would love to see her again.
Yeah. And she's talked to her now about writing her own as part of NeuroShifts, because we have her on more videos now. We're just showing her doing her independent skills, because sometimes I think parents need to see it before they believe it. And so we say, hey, you're a great example for others of what's possible for them. Total independence. We're working with to do independent living here for this community. So, I mean, I just think anything's possible for Gabby. I'm just excited to see what she wants to do, what she's being called to do. And so she's on her path for that. I feel like this time has served her really well. Getting into this community has just been part of her empowerment path, and they're not on the same timeline that our neurotypical children are on, because we feel like, okay, they need to graduate from high school, need to go to college, need to then, and there's like this whole path that's assumed, and it's so different for this community. They're on kind of their own timeline, which I think is kind of cool because they're enjoying the path more. I think for parents, it could bring up a lot of anxiety, but I think if we relax and trust that the right thing's going to open up at the right time, I think it makes it much easier for us and for them.
I'm just thinking about why me, but looking back now, I mean, you are such an inspiring person and just have so much more experience, knowledge, and tools, and are such in a better place maybe than if you hadn't gone through this journey. So I think there's always that. We don't see it right up front, but I think you probably realize it now that this wouldn't have it any other way.
We go from like, why me in a negative sense to why us? How did we become so blessed? How did we get this experience? How did we get to experience life like this in a different place that a lot of people are? So Pierre and I always say she's made us the best version of ourselves. And we're just so appreciative for that.
And we're appreciative for you guys, and everything you do, and sharing your story and inspiring us to keep going, keep learning and exploring, and keep creating new paths.
Yes. And thank you for being part of our path, because of that, we got to meet great people like you that could see that. You know what I'm saying? That, you guys always just loved her, and that was part of our vision for her, is to have people just see her capabilities or her gifts, really appreciate that, and love the work you guys are doing today to just bring your gifts and talents into the world.
Thank you. That means a lot. And it's been an honor, definitely, to be a part of her journey and your all's journey. And I'm so glad we've reconnected after all these years.
How can people find more information or contact you or get a hold of your website or explore more of the resources you have?
Yeah. So we're on the website, Neuro, and it's NEURO -shifts, SHIFTS.org. So that's a good website address for us. And then we're on social media. We're on Facebook as NeuroShifts without a hyphen, and also on LinkedIn, Instagram. So we're getting our messaging out into the world about this community and how amazing they are, and how we can create such a much better world, and just including them, integrating them into it. And so, if anybody out there is listening to this, and especially if you're a parent and you're feeling like you're living in this red zone, war zone, just here to tell you there's hope for you. There's so much out there for you and your child and your family. And I just want to encourage you to get connected. We're here. Pierre and I are doing more work together because, sometimes the father's perspective is different than the mom's. And so we're just trying to build a group because we know where you're at, and we also know where you can be. And then the same for businesses. If you're really interested, right now there's 20% of our community is neurodiverse. So most likely there are already individuals within your business that are neurodiverse, and that includes ADD, ADHD, dyslexia, autism. So part of it is a lot of these individuals are not disclosing that because they don't feel like they have a safe and supportive environment where they can do that. So as a business leader, businesses can really be on the forefront of this because there's more coming. And the more we get educated right now, the more we can create a space for more and more, as this community grows.
There's so many good people doing amazing things. That's just being able to talk to them. It's been inspiring for us there's so much good in the world, like what you're doing. You see a lot of the bad, but so many good people with good hearts doing amazing things. Sharing that has been really
to get the time to sit down and talk with you and to be inspired and feel validated too. I think in some of the things that we work on or that we try to do, and inspired to do more of that. I want to be more in the green zone with my own children and my family. So it's just such a great blessing to be able to have this time. So the more we can connect with more people that are doing these things.
Yeah, we
so
learn.
good.
We continue to learn and grow, right?
Yeah,
Some new
yeah.
things. I think that's the benefit of community.
Yes.
Think about that. You've got a lot of people that are coming in with all different views, and I tried this, and it's just that in itself can help people so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not in it alone.
Yeah.
Please give Gabby and Pierre a big hug for us. We met them.
Thank you.
Yeah.
He was excited that I was going to be able to connect with you all today. He thinks you guys are awesome. So we both do.
You guys are awesome.
I will let Gabby know that we connected, and of course she remembers you both. Like she remembers everything too. She remembers that there's a little song you did with her that on the sidewalk. I mean, she still connects with so many details of her
my
past.
Goodness. It's probably 3 green and speckled frogs. I don't know. We used to we'd sit out on the sidewalk on the bench with her and another friend, and we would sing songs and we had so much fun.
She loved it. She loved it.
Well, let's keep in touch, and if we can do to help or promote or support you guys, love to help for sure.
Yes. Thank you so much. Same here.
Okay.
So let us know. Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
Thank
We'll
you,
be in touch.
Vicky.